what do you think, because we live in like a hookup culture now, how do you think that has affected either dating between men and women and the relationships that we have today?
I mean, I think obviously the hookup culture as well has vastly come off the back of dating apps.
Yep.
Which I've never been on an app, so I don't have experience with that to sort of be able to comment on it personally, other than seeing my friends go through the apps.
You never tried it?
And the traumas that seems to bring for them. No, I haven't. I haven't actually ever felt the need to.
Yeah.
I was in for quite a long time a series of relationships before realizing after many mistakes that monogamous relationships were not really for me.
Yeah.
Which was something that I tried to discuss about 10 years ago, and I was very heavily shut down. And then I was like, okay, clearly I'm the problem. I just need to get over it and conform, which is unusual for me, but it was really that heavy a shutdown.
Yeah.
But, you know, we have moved on and those conversations are happening now.
Yeah.
So I guess for me as a non-monogamous person, hookup culture is sort of my life to a degree. I mean, not so much. I have multiple sexual partners and we all know the score.
Yes.
And if anyone at any point decides to go and be in a relationship, they just say.
100%.
Our channel of communication is so open, you know, there's sort of there's not really any trust to be broken. We all know what the situation is.
Yeah.
But I mean, and I would say that I think sex is better once you have developed a connection with someone. So, like,
100%.
I'm not saying that I'm just going out multiple nights a week, having sex with
100%.
random people. It's definitely ongoing partnerships in that description, but we all have a connection. So, I don't know necessarily that it's a hookup culture.
No.
In terms of how that against relationships is working these days. I think it's that people are offered so much choice that they are just, and I don't, for want of a better term, they're just almost going through more people, which sounds like an awful thing to say.
Yeah.
But people are now in the mindset that even if it seems to be that even if they like someone, there might be something better out there.
Yes.
Because there's always another swipe or another scroll down and a tick so I think people are hooking up with more people because there's just such a wide pool of people who are now on those apps,
available
sliding
to them.
into Instagram DMs, exactly. I just think people I think I can only speak as a woman.
Of course.
It just feels like people are available.
Yeah. And I think as a woman, that is very true. For most guys, that's not the case. Most guys do not have any sexual options, and the average guy rarely gets a sexual option because I talk about this all the time, and just to understand the landscape, a lot of women have a list about it has to be this tall, whatever, that, and most guys don't tick all those boxes. But the guys who do tick those boxes, it's a very small percentage of men. Right. So then what ended up happening is, how you're saying about maybe your girlfriends meeting these guys and being like, he's a fuck boy or whatever, I don't know. Well, it's because statistically speaking, you have about 20% of guys having sex with about 80% of the women half the time, which I think makes it harder to find relationships if that's what you're looking for. If you're looking for, like you said, if you're quite open and you're you're open to polygamy in a sense, and this is the perfect landscape. But I think I don't know, like you said about having multiple partners or whatever, have you found, what's your experience been like in maybe being an open relationship with a guy compared to a girl? Like, how is there any difference, or is it mainly down to individual for you?
Well, I haven't. So an open relationship would, I think, lead more towards having a primary partner,
right?
And then both having the freedom to
do what you want.
For want of a better term. But at the moment, I practice what people would call solo polyamory, which means I consider myself single, but just I have sexual relations, relationships with multiple people. So I don't know that it's that different because everyone knows from the get-go what the situation is. However, I will say that when I've had that conversation with women, they're kind of okay with it. Whereas I have had experiences where I'm always open from the beginning because I just think there's no point being anything other than. That's
Yeah,
kind
of course.
and that's just who I am. But
Yeah.
I definitely have, with men, gotten a little way into that. And them having expected me to change my mind.
Yes.
And which is funny to me because all I've seen most of my life is female friends wanting to change men's minds about being in relationships with them. So I think it's
Yes.
funny to be like on the other foot, because I think there is still that kind of outdated idea that, well, she'll want to settle down with one person though, really, right?
Shall I tell you what?
She's just saying it.
Shall I tell you what I think it is?
Yeah, go ahead.
I think if a guy is just looking to have fun, then that's a perfect situation for him. If he starts to look at you and be like, oh, this is someone I want to take seriously, that's when he starts to be like, I'm not okay with it.
Yeah.
And I think because there is for a man to, for most, like generalization, but I think for a man to invest in a girl long term, I think sexual fidelity is very important to him. And we know sexual fidelity is very important to a lot of people, you know, women included. But I think there is an element of the woman that I choose to invest in long term, my time, energy, financials, whatever depending on the kind of man you want, this is the one who I'm gonna sacrifice myself for. This is the woman I would die for. There is an element of, okay, but I have to know that that it's just us two in the game. As opposed to I have to worry about this guy or this guy. There is an argument about some guys being like, oh, I'd be open, they'd be open to their girlfriend or partner being with other women. But yeah, when it comes to men, I think they're more sexually territorial if they're going to take us seriously, which is really interesting because in like you're in the industry, half the people are gay, right? In a lot of gay relationships with men, they're open physically, but emotionally it's just them.
Yeah.
Whereas with a lot of lesbians, it's the other way around. It's physically they're exclusive to each other, but they'll stay best friends with their ex-girlfriend.
Yeah,
and they'll hang out with them or whatever. Do you know what I mean? So I think that's like really interesting. But yeah, I think that's why.
Well, when I was actually on a tour, and a few people in it were gay men, and they were married in gay marriages, and they were open, and we had so many discussions about it that it was sort of being in that environment and talking to them so much that made me feel more comfortable to start exploring that again and actually start being open about it again. And I come up against it a lot, of course, because I think it's still it's not a new concept, but it's a new concept in terms of that it's being spoken about more, and more people are starting to look at it as an option. And I've said before, not being monogamous or being polyamorous makes me feel free.
Yes.
And people who lean towards monogamous situations say, oh, so you're saying that monogamy doesn't make people feel free? And I said, well, if you are a monogamous person, you should feel free within your monogamy, because that's who you are and what you believe. So
I hear that.
It shouldn't feel like a trap to you, because it's inherently who you are and what you believe. So why would you feel trapped?
Yeah, I hear that. I think I understand why. I do think when you enter a monogamous relationship, you do make sacrifices.
Yeah, of course you do.
But I think you make those sacrifices, but you go, this person is worth that sacrifice. So like, if you go, okay, like I enjoy sleeping with loads of people and stuff, but I found this one person who I want to build life with. And while I would still love the freedom to do what I want physically with other people, I'm willing to sacrifice that because what I'm getting here is more valuable for me. So I do think there is an element of compromise and sacrifice you do make for a relationship. I think relationships, even by definition, means compromises in certain aspects, not on your values and your principles, but you compromise on certain things to serve the relationship you want to build.